In 1991, Genesis scored what would be their final #1 song in both the UK and USA. The incredible thing about this song, though, is how un-Genesis it was. It was really just created by 3 men messing about in a studio, a throwaway piece which ended up being a massive hit. And the inspiration and the story behind this song is fascinating as well. By the way, if you want to watch this video ad-free and get your name listed down below there, you can sign up to my Patreon. You can watch all my videos ad-free, and it really helps me to continue making content like this. Link in the description. Now, the evolution Genesis went through from their formation in the 60s all the way through to the 90s is, well, incredible. Throughout the 70s, they were producing intricate, multi-part, atmospheric prog rock songs with baffling lyrics from frontman Peter Gabriel. I mean, if you compare something like Supper's Ready, a 23-minute epic, to something like I Can't Dance, it's like they were recorded by different bands. Then, of course, the band eventually thinned out to a trio, hence the album And Then There Were Three in 1978. And over time, the Genesis sound evolved quite dramatically. They favoured a more accessible sound and trimmed back the prog rock stuff. And by 1986, the band were riding high. They released the album Invisible Touch in that year, and it set a new sales benchmark for Genesis, selling over 6 million copies in the US alone, and producing an astonishing 5 Billboard Top 5 hits, including the chart-topping title track. And by this time, all 3 members of the band were actively pursuing solo careers, with Phil Collins and Mike Rutherford in particular enjoying significant success. However, after wrapping up their individual commitments, the trio regrouped to continue their work as Genesis for their 14th studio album, We Can't Dance. We started this album with absolutely nothing. No vocal ideas, no musical ideas, nothing. It was just us going into the studio and improvising our way around. There are no rules. However, there was a method to this madness, according to Tony Banks. We've pretty much made that method a policy over the last couple of albums because we feel that's the best way to make a record that is totally distinguishable from our solo efforts. If you start bringing in ideas, even small ideas, there's a tendency for that person to want to kind of lead at that point. And that produces something that can be done on our solo records. So we try to keep the Genesis stuff away from all that. Now remember, by the time they stepped in the studio, Phil Collins in particular had cemented himself as a successful solo artist, fresh off the huge success of his 4th album, But Seriously, from 1989. And this success only fueled the anticipation for the next Genesis album. Fans were eager to see what they came out with. And what they came out with, especially the second single from the album, was a bit of a surprise. No elaborate keyboard solos, no complex time signatures. I Can't Dance was this really minimal track built around Mike Rutherford's chunky, thumping guitar riff. And like I said, they made this by just messing around in the studio. We'd all taken our Fine Young Cannibals pills, imitating the way that Roland Gift sings, and joking about jeans commercials. And Tony Banks later said in an interview, "It was one of those bits you thought was going to go nowhere. It sounded fun, but wasn't really special." Now, Collins' lyrics were inspired by adverts, or commercials for American viewers, selling blue jeans, Levi's in particular. According to Collins, each verse in the song is a swipe at the bizarre scenarios depicted in these jeans commercials. Blue jeans sitting on the bench, her dog's talking to me but she's out of reach. She's got a body under that shirt, but all she wants to do is rub my face in the dirt. And later, young punk spilling beer on my shoes, fat guys talking to me trying to steal my blues, thick smoke, see her smiling through, I never thought so much could happen, just shoot in pool. Now this verse in particular takes direct aim at the 1991 Levi's advert that featured Should I Stay or Should I Go by The Clash. In fact, it's pretty much word for word describing that ad. From the fat man trying to steal his blue jeans to the girl smiling through the smoke. And the section of the music video is an obvious parody of it. This Levi's advert in particular has been cited as the original inspiration for Mike Rutherford's riff. From there, Tony Banks added some effects using his keyboard, and the group gradually realised that they were onto something. They really recognised the humour in it as a vehicle for a broader message. In the lyrics, Collins was writing about the consumer culture at the time, the lengths people would go to sell something. The idea of dressing a mindless model in blue jeans and pushing him in front of a camera. I can't dance, I can't talk, only thing about me is the way I walk. And the chorus ends with the line, I'm just standing here selling everything. So Phil Collins is saying that these models, a metaphor for advertisement in general, I guess, can't do anything except walk in jeans. It's not about being unable to dance, it's about guys that look good but can't string a sentence together. I mean, it is a little bit harsh, these models are being paid to do a job, but if you view it in the wider context of the advertising culture in general, I totally get what he means. Faceless zombies trying to sell you anything and everything, that sort of thing. And of course, the music video only amplified these ideas, perfectly parodying the consumer world of blue jeans advertisements. However, Phil Collins thought that the Genesis fans didn't quite understand the underlying message in the song. It was good fun, but the audience thought, what does he mean that he can't dance? They didn't see the humour and it killed the fun. A few years later, I was doing promo for my solo album, Both Sides. I told my manager I think I've done enough with Genesis. I'm living in Switzerland and I'm really happy domestically. All bands dissolve, they aren't meant to last forever. Now, one important thing about this song, and perhaps the reason this song exists in the first place, is that at the time of recording the album, the music industry had gone through significant changes. In the years following Invisible Touch, the rise of the compact disc revolutionized music consumption, allowing artists to include more material on a single release, as album runtimes could be significantly longer. Now, many bands would fall into the trap of just padding an album out with filler, whereas Genesis used the expanded format to their advantage. See, as the group's pop success grew in the 80s, their radio-friendly hits often took priority over their longer, more intricate songs. Or at least labels and managers were telling them to prioritize radio-friendly hits over the longer, more intricate songs. But with We Can't Dance, they found a balance. The album delivered 6 singles, 5 reaching the US Top 40, while still allowing room for extended tracks like Driving the Last Spike and Fading Lights, both over 10 minutes long. Banks said, our strength has always lay in being able to give ourselves a bit of room to breathe. We work well in long songs, it gives us a chance to do more instrumental work and a chance to tell more of a story with the lyrics. So perhaps this space to play around in the studio joking about jeans adverts rather than focusing purely on pumping out radio-friendly hits is what allowed them to create I Can't Dance. And it certainly made for a great album. It reached the top of the UK album charts and number 4 in the US. Genesis made a brief attempt to continue with new singer Ray Wilson, but Calling All Stations flopped so badly that they never recorded another studio album. Now, ironically, that Levi's advert that featured the Clash song is what gave the Clash their first and only UK number 1, a decade after it was released. And you could also argue that that song signalled the end for The Clash. I've made an entire video about that fascinating story. Click over there and watch that one next.